Toastmaster Karthikeyan, the appraisal. The appraisal, Toastmaster Karthikeyan.
It was around mid-April, and I was very confident and fully prepared for the discussions with my boss. It was one of my best years, and I had a good list of career-defining accomplishments, and it was very clear for me that the results of the appraisal was a clear, straight 5 on a 5. That's outstanding performance. The meeting started. Me and my manager started reviewing the goals and the accomplishments against each goal one by one. There were no surprises. As we were getting to the close of the meeting, I was just getting curious to hear the result from him and also listen to his overall summary. He presented the overall summary and made his closing remarks. Karthik, it's very evident that you had great results. You were very efficient, results oriented, and you excellently managed time. All that's great. But after a few moments of a deafening silence, he continued, but you are the least enjoyable to work with. I don't get to see your human side. I did not expect that. I certainly did not expect that feedback. Very good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. It was 2006. This was a time I was working in Nokia, and Nokia was setting up the factory in Sriperumbudur in Chennai, and I happened to be the first project buyer. We had the responsibility to make the first shipment. So as you know, it was a greenfield project, and the dates for the shipment were announced. You could imagine the amount of visibility and the pressure for such a project. We were a small 3-member team in materials management, and we were a critical partners to make sure that the first shipment was successful. Being a greenfield project, it obviously called for a lot of discussions and deliberations because there are a lot of unknowns. So whenever my team lead, Anand, called to check the feasibility of doing something, my answer would generally be a straightforward yes or a no. Whereas my colleague, Raj, who was pretty much the same age as me, had a very interesting way of answering these questions. His answers would be long, which I found unnecessary and sometimes annoying. The long story short version of his answers most of the times would be the same no that I had mentioned. Over time, I started to realize my answers were not accepted, whereas his answers were. As we were getting through the getting ready with the preparations for the mega event, which is the first shipment, we identified as a team certain critical elements in the supply, and we made sure that all that was overcome, and we were seen as a critical partners who were contributing to the success of that project. So we were seen as a successful team. Months passed, and as there were opportunities coming up to represent materials management in Asia Pacific, which is a job opportunity in Beijing, Anand chose Raj over me. Why not me? This was the question that was eating my mind. I definitely cribbed about this for some time and moved on. I found my opportunities in a different place. I started growing in my career. I had bigger responsibilities, and I was building the reputation of being a very efficient, results-oriented, focused, and effective in time management. And I was very happy about the progress I was making in my career. You could say I was very elated and I was on cloud 9 until I heard this feedback: you are the least enjoyable to work with. It was very, very difficult for me to digest this feedback. I couldn't really process this in my head. I literally had sleepless nights. Seeing me agitated and disturbed for a few days, my wife said, why don't you talk with someone? Whatever the topic is, why don't you talk with someone? I heard that and I did act on it. The question was, whom do I talk to? After a lot of deliberations, I decided to reach out to my ex-boss, Anand. He gave me a very patient hearing, and the discussions with him made me realize a lot of things. He made me realize that communication is not just about what you say. It's also about how you say it. If not more important, it's more important that how you say it is more important. He made me realize that my direct communication styles did hurt people sometimes. And I had created the perception that I was not very participative or collaborative. And he quoted some instances where my straight no gave him the impression that I was not ready to move beyond my boundary, right? So I was seen as somebody who was not collaborative. He made me realize that it's very important to choose the communication style depending on the situation. The one size fits all doesn't help. He made me realize how my closed mindset made me a poor listener, and that was one of the reasons for some of the bad experiences that I had. I profusely thanked him for enlightening me on these aspects. And I very seriously started making amends to how I approached communication. I started to make very conscious efforts to bring my human side into my communication. So, dear friends, while we may have a predominant style, it's very important for us to understand that there are different styles of communication. The direct style, which was obviously the me before talking with Anand. The initiating style of communication, a very good example is my manager, who focused on the aspect of relationships. The analytical communicator, my ex-colleague Raj, whose answers I found annoying because I was a poor listener. I did not really understand the analysis that he was making and how valuable it was. And the last is the supportive style of communication, which is to lend up ear and be a good listener. As I said, communication is not just what we say, how we say it is very important. This was a very profound learning that I had. And while we have predominant style, it is very important for us. The art of communication demands that we choose the right style depending on the situation. Over to you, Toastmaster, today.